can see a lot better now.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I've got 7 o'clock. Is everybody ready? Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Bellbrook City Council, August the 10th, 2020. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands,
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Pam, if you could call the roll.
She disappeared.
She disappeared just as quick as she came on camera.
Okay,
There she
hello.
is.
She's back.
All right, roll call, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Havens,
Here.
Dr. Van Veldhuizen,
Here.
Mr. Greenwood,
Here.
Mrs. Middlestetter,
Here.
Mr. Edwards,
Here.
Mayor Schweller.
Here. This time we have a motion to excuse Councilman Hook from tonight's meeting.
I'll make a motion to excuse Councilman Hoke from tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Nick. In a second.
A second.
Oh,
Thank you. Ernie?
A motion was made by Mr. Edwards to excuse Mr. Hoke from tonight's council meeting, and this was seconded by Mr. Havens. Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Havens,
Yes.
Dr. Van Veldhuizen,
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter,
yes.
and Mayor Schweller.
Yes. This time in everyone's packets were the minutes of the last meeting, July the 27th, 2020. Does any member of council have any corrections or additions to those minutes?
None, Mayor.
And Mayor.
Seeing none, I declare the minutes approved as written. I don't have any mayor announcements for this evening, nor do we have any public hearings nor introductions, but we do have 2 resolutions on tonight's agenda. The first being resolution 2020-Q, Councilman Van Veldhuizen.
All righty. So give me just a sec. I've got it up. All right. And I am off mute. You can hear me?
Correct.
Good deal. All right. City of Bellbrook, resolution number 2020-Q, a resolution authorizing the city manager to adjust the pay scales of city positions not covered by a collective bargaining agreement. Whereas the city of Bellbrook wishes to adjust the pay scales for city positions which are not covered by collective bargaining agreement, and whereas the city reviews wage rates for its employees on an annual basis, and whereas the wages of certain employees will fall outside the new pay scales and ranges for certain positions, and the city manager shall have the authority to adjust those specific wages as necessary, including one-time lump sum payments. And whereas the pay scales for elected officials, the clerk of council, and the city manager will not be adjusted. And whereas the city wishes to incorporate the wage provisions into the general personnel policies of the city. Now therefore, the city of Bellbrook hereby resolves, Section 1, that the city manager is hereby authorized to adjust the wages for certain positions per the attached pay scales and ranges effective August 1st, the year 2020. Section 2, that the attached pay scales and ranges be approved as presented. Section 3, that the city manager has the authority to adjust the wages of certain employees that fall outside the new pay scales and ranges for their positions as necessary, including one-time lump sum payments. And Section 4, that this resolution shall take effect and be enforced forthwith. That's the end of the resolution, Mayor. Guess where I work.
Okay, so this pay scale that is attached to this resolution has the the changes that were made to the service department's pay scales that we reviewed at the last meeting, so those are exactly as is. All other positions were adjusted at 2% as a result of that discussion. And there were two exceptions to that, and it was with fire part-time positions and patrol part-time positions. Those were always even numbers, and those had not been adjusted. And I also, let me back that up. It was all of our part-time positions. So there are 3 under administrative. So our part-time museum curator, camera operator, and custodian, and then our fire non-union part-timers and police non-union part-timer, those had not been updated in the last couple years. And so it was actually brought to my attention by our fire chief. And so I adjusted $1 an hour for the fire and police positions. And then our administrative part-time positions were just a range. And I added $1 to the base on those and then put the 5% in between the steps that has been what I've tried to standardize with our pay scales as they have been changed. So just a recap, service is the new pay scale that we talked about, and our part-time positions all had $1 an hour added to them and adjusted accordingly. And the one position that did not get discussed last week, but was part of my information that I had provided to council, was our current police lieutenant. It has been recommended by Chief Doherty that that position be reclassified as a captain, but with the same pay scale as the lieutenant. So it's a change in title only, not in pay. So that pay scale was adjusted 2% with the other full-timers that were adjusted 2%. But he is making the recommendation that we change that title from lieutenant to captain. So therefore we see it as police lieutenant / captain, just because I would like for council to either support that. So just to give you a little bit of history, and Chief Doherty is actually on the Zoom meeting. And Pam, I'm not able to make him a panelist, or I'm not sure how I would be able to make him speak. And you're on mute, Pam. So I wanted to invite Chief Doherty just because if anybody would actually have specific questions about that position and what his thought process was behind that, I really wanted him to be able to speak to that. But the basic gist of it is that a police lieutenant is mostly a frontline supervisor in most police organizations, and Lieutenant Carmen is second in command to Chief Doherty. So when the chief is not there, Lieutenant Carmen runs the entire operation. So he's much more than a frontline supervisor. He was involved in all of our bargaining negotiations with the sergeants and the officers this time. So he's very involved with the department from a management level. So I support Chief Doherty's suggestion to change his title to captain and keeping the pay the same. So I would like to see if council has any questions. The pay scales, obviously, they are pretty self-explanatory and nothing really surprising with those. But if anybody has any specific questions about the police lieutenant going to a captain, then Chief Doherty is here to be able to answer those.
I would assume that the recommendation to not change the pay scale makes the responsibilities of equal value. It sounds like the captain's job might have more responsibility. I don't know the specifics, but why not? If he's second in command, why wouldn't the pay scale be adjusted? Or is it commensurate with other departments?
Melissa, we've often used that title kind of interchangeable correctly. It's always been lieutenant / captain.
Are you?
You're on mute. Is Chief Doherty out there? I see a square. Welcome, welcome.
Yeah, I'm here.
I'll let him speak to that. Sorry.
How's that?
There's that good looking mugshot.
There, that's better.
I don't know if all I know is what it's been since I've been here since 2014. And Lieutenant has a designation throughout the law enforcement community as being more of a frontline supervisor. And Lieutenant Carmen, Steve Carmen, is much more than that to the Bobrick Police Department. He has a wide variety of assignments and jobs that are more commensurate with the administrative position as a captain and second in charge than he would be as a first line supervisor as a lieutenant.
I guess, but my question was, are those responsibilities in, say, in other organizations, are they relative pay scale wise, responsibility wise?
Yes, in both.
Oh,
Both.
okay, that's what, because it sounded like second in command should be higher than lieutenant, but
It's, I would say, where I came from at Xenia PD, I went from chief to captains, and captains would oftentimes fill in as a acting chief and do those positions just like it would be here.
Yeah.
Okay. So Doug, you support the change, obviously, and you're okay with the wage being the same, and we think we're there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any comments or discussion amongst council? I guess we have kind of two things. One is the pay scales, primarily non-union employees, and the second one is to change the title for Lieutenant Carmen to captain.
Yes, that's
My only feedback is I wouldn't want the conversation to go in 2 years to, we need to raise the pay to match the title.
that was what my question was to start with, is that title. Is that pay scale commensurate with the title?
Yes, I can say that is not the end game or anything. There's no end run trying to do anything. We're just trying to make the title more commensurate with people that do his type of work throughout the county.
Okay.
Any more conversation with regard to the title change?
I just
Yeah, but
I just wanted to ask a question. Is there like a difference in job description between lieutenant and captain, or are they act pretty much the same
Wait,
set of work skills?
Same job description, Mr. Greenwood. Just the name and the change of the title is all it would be.
That's okay. That's all I have. Thanks.
Any questions with regards to the wage scales? I know we've talked about this a couple of times. Melissa, do we need a separate motion for the change in title?
I think that when you move to adopt the resolution, you could do it with striking police lieutenant from that title so that the wage scale could be accepted as is with just striking the police lieutenant title, since they're both there. So it would be accepted as is with that strike. Pam, unless you have a better idea in terms of how to do that, you're
No, I think that'd be the best way to do it. If that's the motion that someone wants to make, we can do it that way and then
Okay.
adjust the final printed version.
Any more discussion amongst council? Chief, thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
thank
You
you.
want to approve a motion regarding resolution 2020-Q.
Sorry, I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Thank you. In a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
So I do have a question. So are we striking that part of the resolution with the title change,
It would be the attachment.
the attachment? Or are we leaving it all as is?
I'd say unless there's some disagreement, leave it like it is and vote for both of them on one.
I think we leave it as is.
Okay, so Dr. Dave, your motion was to accept it as is?
You're muted.
You're on mute.
Sorry, there we go. All right, I'm just looking at the resolution.
You hit mute again.
Sorry, evidently, I'm looking at the resolution. I don't see anything in the resolution that speaks directly to the job title. It's
Okay.
only in the attachment. So
Okay.
I'm happy with the resolution as it is, making the motion and
Okay, thank you. All right, Dr. Van Veldhuizen made a motion to adopt resolution 2020-Q, a resolution authorizing the city manager to adjust the pay scales of city positions not covered by a collective bargaining agreement. This was seconded by Mrs. Middlestetter. Dr. Van Veldhuizen,
yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter,
Yes.
Mr. Havens,
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood,
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mayor Schweller.
Yes. Thank you, Pam. Next up is resolution 2020-R. Councilman Havens, please.
Bringing it up now here. Resolution number 2020-R, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an extension of the electric generation supply agreement with DP&L Energy Resources, DPLER abbreviated, for municipal accounts. Whereas the city is one of 26 public entities currently participating in the Miami Valley Communications Council electric generation supply agreement with DPL Energy Resources Incorporated for the provisions of electric generation and transmission supply services for the accounts through May of 2024, collectively referred to as participating public entities. And whereas in accordance with the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio rules and regulations, the participating public entities have an opportunity to maximize savings on the generation of transmission proportion of their electric service costs through the selection of competitive retail electric service provider. Whereas market pricing for the electric generation is currently competitive for service beyond the term of the existing agreement, and whereas MVCC has negotiated an extension of the current agreement to capture the competitive market rates, and whereas the city wishes to participate in the agreement extension due to favorable rates that will reduce the city's cost for electric generation and transmission supply services. Now therefore, the city of Bellbrook hereby resolves, Section 1, the city manager is hereby authorized to enter into an extension of the agreement with DPL Energy Resources for electric generation for the period of July 2020 through May 2024. Section 2, the resolution shall take effect and be in force forthwith. So I did take a look at those prices and compare them. They're a tremendously good rate, especially to be able to lock it in for that long. Nice job, Melissa.
So this was actually in place well before me. This, if you look at the actual attached agreement, this is amendment number 6, and this has been in place since 2011. So this has been something that the city of Bellbrook has been part of for a long time. And so it's an all or none situation with this. So there are a number of other municipalities, 26 to be exact, not just municipalities. There are a couple other public entities that aren't actually cities or villages or townships that are involved in this as well. So this equates out to approximately a $2,500 annual savings for the city. So this, like I said, is kind of an all or none thing. So we all participate or nobody is able to get the benefit. So it's definitely in everybody's best interest to be a part of this so that we don't miss out on any kind of a savings for our electric bill. So
I think it would be even a greater savings if we were out on our own trying to shop this rate for the next 4 years than just $2,500. That's a really good rate.
Any more discussion amongst council? We have a motion regarding resolution 2020-R.
I'd like to make a motion to accept resolution 2020-R.
Thank you, Ernie. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Forrest.
A motion was made by Mr. Havens to adopt resolution 2020-R, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an extension of the electric generation supply agreement with DP&L Energy Resources for municipal accounts. This was seconded by Mr. Greenwood. Mr. Havens,
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood,
Yes.
Dr. Van Veldhuizen,
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter,
yes,
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mayor Schwaller.
Yes. Thank you, Pam. Next up is the city manager report.
So this one is fairly brief just because I've been a bit consumed with our collective bargaining agreements. We had 2 of them going on at the same time. So that's been keeping us hopping for sure. So we are past the deadline for the Parks Commissioner applications to have been turned in. That deadline was August 2nd. There were 9 applicants. So we are going to be interviewing those applicants this week. So I think all 9 interviews are between tomorrow and Wednesday. So it's gonna be a busy next couple days. The applicants, it's a really great pool, and there's a lot of familiar names on the list. So I'm really excited to dig in and meet these folks and hopefully find a great representative of Bellbrook on the Parks Commission board. So that's great. So a late development, I on Fridays, it's really funny because I have to update the city manager update probably 5 times because something changes from the last time I look at it. So I had been waiting to get this project agreement from Ohio Public Works Commission. We could not authorize the contractor to proceed on the construction until we had a project agreement in place. And so I was told at the beginning of last week that it would be available shortly, and a week went past and I didn't have anything. So I had started to ask about it again at the beginning of this week, and a ball got dropped somewhere and it did not get completed as our rep thought it was. So it actually got sent over to me on Friday. I was able to execute the agreement. Thankfully, the resolution was stated in a way that when we did the application for the emergency funding, I could enter into the agreement as well. So I was able to send that off on Friday. And then I immediately issued the notice to proceed in the construction contract with Sturm Construction. So that has been fully executed and they are ready to start. Thank goodness. I feel like that was, I mean, the delay was good in a way, because if we would have the timing just worked out great, because if they would have started and that emergency funding would have became available, we would have been ineligible for it. So the delay just really helped us, honestly. And they did not have any issue or voice any concern over getting it done within the time frame, which is by October 31st. So let's all just hope that weather holds and we don't get any kind of crazy rain events or anything like that that would prevent construction from continuing on that timeline. So there is another project which we talked about in our executive session in terms of my goals, and that's Northwest Street. So That was a community development block grant that we got last year. And so they manage the construction portion. They solicit the bids and they award the bid based on our feedback. And so that bid was actually just awarded this past week. And so we opened up the purchase order for our portion of it. We thought that our portion of it was going to be 45,000, but the bid came in low. So our portion is now only 19,000. So that was a win. So we are saving a little bit on that one, which is really great. And those are the really big updates. We are going to talk about paving, which was the other thing that we had kind of hanging out there. And I think that that's next. So we'll, well, it's coming up. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Melissa. That was certainly a nice win on the Northwest Street sidewalk improvements, going from 46,000 to 19,000. That's a home run. Does there have any other questions of the city manager? Thanks for the report. Moving on, next up is old business 2020 paving.
Okay, so 2020 paving. So this got brought up at the last meeting because apparently Jurgensen is going to be doing the milling on Thursday. So that's 3 days from now. So we have to make a decision whether or not we want to include Lindley and Justin. So I included in the packet a lot of information. It just basically goes through what happened. You know, we typically budgeted 150,000. We had the extra gas tax money. We earmarked 200,000 at the start of the 2020 budget season. Then the pandemic happened and we took some hit in our gas tax and there was some uncertainty there. So when we worked out our cooperative paving agreement with Greene County, we held Lindley Drive and Justin Court as optional until we could kind of see where the year was going to fall. So we are now at that point because, like I said, they are going to be here this week. And so the addition of the two other streets would be almost $48,000. So I gave some charts that show our gas taxes this year compared to last year. And then I also had a chart that showed the 2020 gas taxes that we've received. And we've already rebounded almost fully from pre-pandemic. So we were bringing in about $35,000 a month. And we're now back up to 31,000 that we got in July. So at this point in 2020, we're already ahead $34,000 more than where we were the same period of last year, pre-pandemic, pre-gas tax. So I'm comfortable with going ahead and paving those two streets. And we just need a decision so that we know what to tell the Greene County engineer who can communicate with Jurgensen. So I'm hopeful that our trajectory of our gas taxes stays on the upward swing and stabilizes. I mean, we're only down $4,000 than where we were pre-pandemic. So that's not much when you're only talking about $35,000 to begin with. So we just need to figure out what we want to do so that I know what to tell the county.
So basically a month and a half worth of taxes to do the extra two streets.
Yes.
I personally think it's a good idea to try to stay ahead of the streets. I mean, you hear about roads in Riverside, you hear about roads in Beaver Creek. And I think, like I said before, one of the few areas that hasn't had the road problem because we've been a little bit more proactive. I'm not a big fan of having it go much over 200,000, but if we're at 180,000, including the 6% overage, I think that's a comfortable spot to be in. We did get feedback from a couple of citizens. One of them specifically requested that we look at Lindley, which we're doing. And he said it hadn't been paved in a number of years and it's kind of rough right now in a few spots. So I think that's consistent with Ryan's request that it be included part of the paving for this year.
I also think we should move forward on it.
Yeah, me too. We didn't have the money before, but we do now.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
I think we need to
What-
move forward.
Yeah, that gas tax money too. I mean, the real estate taxes, if we don't get those on time, we're gonna get those in arrears because nobody gets a tax holiday. They'll go when they sell the properties or whatever. But to the extent we lose that gas tax, that's lost money that'll never be recovered. And I think we bounced back quite nicely. And literally, we had just one rough month where the, what, 24,000 or something like that. So let's hope we stay the course. Any more discussion? The consensus is that we'll do the 182,720, which includes a 6% overage, and they'll start on Thursday. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Next up under new business is the CARES Act funds discussion. And this is relative to our $120,000 allotment from Greene County.
That is correct. So I provided a report in the council packet just to kind of let everybody know what we've spent on so far, what we plan to spend on, and the real purpose behind this discussion happening right now. Since I don't have a lot of update in terms of, we haven't spent a lot of money, we don't have a lot in the pipe, but we do have need in the community, and that's really what I wanted to focus on tonight. So we have Kelsey, who is the executive director of the Family Resource Center, with us, and I'm thankful that she could join us because I asked her if she could join us kind of last minute, and she was able to do that. So I'm very thankful for that, because there's no better person to speak to kind of the work of the Family Resource Center and the need that they have right now and that she has seen in our community. So just really quickly, we got $120,616 from Greene County. We have to have that money encumbered by October 15th. And so we have to figure out where we're spending that money, and we have to know exactly where we're spending that money. And we don't have to actually spend it until December 28th. And at that point, it will go back to the state. So we have made some purchases. We bought 6 iPads with keyboards. That's for use by utilities, fire chief, police chief, service director, Pam, and planning and zoning. And so we did that, and we're still waiting on those to arrive. We did get the dividers for council chambers that are in between each of the seats. And I know that Pam had sent a picture of that. Those are installed and ready to go. Just nobody's had the luxury of being able to come in and see them. So we did that. And then we did earmark and have on order some streaming equipment for the council and board meetings. Our board meetings were never able to go out to the public before, because the only meetings that we had able to go out onto cable were just our city council meetings. And so that accessibility, especially through all of this, is really important. And so the streaming equipment was something that we wanted to purchase, and that was $1,900. So that was a minimal purchase. And then we'd bought some various cleaning supplies and a printer for one of the employees to use while they were at home. So we have spent just short of $11,000. We have another $8,000 in purchases planned, and that would be upgrading the 2 city, I had a typo in there, the 2 city building public restrooms. So we have a public restroom that's on our first floor, and it's just a one room restroom. And then everybody has seen the ones that we have up here on the second floor. We have separate men's and women's restrooms. So we are going to upgrade those with touchless facilities. So they would be touchless faucets, touchless toilets, touchless paper towel holder, things like that. So we were going to do that with the 2 public restrooms that we have in the city building, and we were also going to do that for the library. So those are the things that we have planned. So that totals a whopping $19,000 out of 120. So we still have $101,000 remaining at this point. I know that we're going to be able to allocate some towards our personnel that were dedicated to COVID, such as our fire and our police, first responder types. And those guidelines keep changing. So the Office of Budget Management at the state level, they are constantly asking for clarification and putting out clarification. So I don't feel comfortable dedicating any of that until I know where that's going to land, which probably will be at the last minute. So I know that we can earmark some of that money towards personnel costs, but there is a real need in our community. And so I had a conversation with Kelsey when I first met her, and I went over to the Family Resource Center to visit, and I was blown away by just the operation that they have going on over there. I mean, I've always been aware of the Family Resource Center, and I've known the people that operated it, and I was just blown away by just what they're doing over there. So I started to have a conversation with Kelsey about this, and I said, we're going to get some money from the county, and we are going to be able to help families and individuals that have been impacted by the pandemic by way of, either they're facing eviction or they've lost jobs and they need help with, utilities. They have to be able to demonstrate that they were affected by the pandemic. And so we don't have that capacity to be able to identify those people and understand the need, and then, be able to give a grant. But the Family Resource Center has their thumb on the pulse of the community and the people that are in need, because they see them on a weekly basis when they come in for their groceries, or, they call them because they have some other sort of a need that the Family Resource Center can assist with. So with that being said, it's really important to understand the environment that we're in right now with the pandemic, because there was a moratorium or a stay that was put on for any kind of evictions that any renters, what it meant was any renters would not be able to be evicted by their landlords if they couldn't pay their rent. And that expired on July 25th, I believe. And then you've got the other piece of that where the extra unemployment assistance has now expired as well. And all of that happened very recently. So where people kind of had a life preserver there for a while that was in place, those are starting to be stripped away. So I didn't want to wait until October where we figure out what we want to do and allocate to the Family Resource Center, because I know that there are people that are really hurting right now financially. And so I would like to make the recommendation that we give them between 15 and 20,000. And I just want to kind of have that conversation with council, see what you all might be supportive of, given the information that I just went through. And if you guys have any questions for Kelsey in terms of her role in the Family Resource Center's role in being able to help give out that assistance, then she would be here to be able to help with that piece of it. So that's where I am with all of this. And that's what I would like for council to consider.
Thank you, Melissa, and welcome to our council meeting, Kelsey. My initial question is, my understanding is the Family Resource Center in Bellbrook is the only unit of its type that helps specifically citizens in the township and in the city of Bellbrook, and there's not a lot of competition in that market. I think Family Resource Center is pretty much it, correct?
Yep.
In my understanding, yes.
Yeah, then on your needs, I mean, I would prefer we help citizens of Bellbrook first. I don't know, did the township get money as well, Melissa?
I know that their administrator did reach out to me asking if we were and if that was an allowable expense. And I did tell him that I did specifically reach out to the Office of Budget Management, and I told them very specifically what we wanted to do and that we wanted to grant money to our Family Resource Center for this specific reason that I just outlined. And they told me that that was an allowable expense. I have it in writing, it's an email. So I think that their administrator wasn't sure if that was an allowable expense or not. And I did get that clarification from the state.
Okay, good. And then you can also pass on to Kelsey the requirements, and I think she'll have some record keeping at her end as well to kind of track everything, since she'll be presumably our agent.
Yes.
But that being said, Kelsey, I'll certainly give you a few minutes comment as well. I really think I would support $20,000 at this point in time. But I'll turn it over to Kelsey, and you can tell us a little bit more about some of the activities and the need right now during the pandemic.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. So prior to when the school shut down in mid-March, we were open 4 hours a week, serving anywhere from 0 to 4 families a week. In the first 2 weeks after the school shut down, I think we had 54 people come through. And that was all, we were putting things directly into people's cars. We were just packing like crazy. The community was really, really supportive of giving us donations. Since then, we've had about somewhere between like 18 and 30 families who are coming every week for food. So we get those orders online and we pack them up and get them out to people on Wednesdays. We also have people coming in looking for clothing, and that for a few months we were shut down there, but people are able to set appointments to come in for 30-minute periods by themselves with just staff there and look for clothes. We've also done a summer fun box program because a lot of the summer camps were canceled. A lot of kids didn't get to have the same plans that they were going to have. So we got people in the community donated boxes of, bubbles and jump ropes and balls and really fun things that would get kids outside. And we got, I think, 30 something fun boxes were donated to families in the community, which was awesome. They were just so much fun to receive and to give back out to families. We just started a birthday program where we're asking people to like sponsor a child for, a maximum of $25, but the parent or grandparent or foster parent could submit what the kid's favorite things are, or maybe something that they're hoping the kid has asked for that they can't provide themselves. And that way we can help make those connections in the community. And if the community can't support them, then we can step in. So basically we've been doing a lot of reorganizing, a lot of restructuring, kind of tightening up policies. Things have changed a lot in the last year or so within the Family Resource Center, and we're really trying to grow in a very organized, methodical, let's see how else we can help, let's see what else we can do. So one more thing I'll mention is that we just hired a fellow who is a client of the Family Resource Center. She's been receiving services from us for a little while, and we received a grant from St. Francis of Assisi, so we're able to pay her for her time to work in the Resource Center. And the goal is to have her employed in the community with assistance from us at the end of the year. And then our hope is to have this fellow come in a couple of times, a different fellow a couple of times a year, and get somebody employed in the community by the end of their time with us. So anyway, all of that being said, after I spoke with Melissa, we were so excited about this opportunity, and we created a survey to disseminate to all of our clients. And I got feedback on, have you been negatively financially impacted by COVID-19? What has that, are you struggling to pay your mortgage, rent, or utilities? And is there any chance you'll be evicted or have your utilities shut off after the July 25th eviction moratorium? So just not everybody that responded was in Bellbrook, but just to give you a sense, 85% of the 58 respondents have been personally negatively impacted financially due to COVID. 80% of them are struggling to pay their mortgage, rent, or utilities, and 40% of them have a chance that they'll be evicted or have utilities shut off. And so this is just these are staggering numbers right here in our community. And I was able to go through the list and just based on client location, found that there are 15 families in Bellbrook who work with the Family Resource Center who also are at risk of being evicted or having utilities shut off due to financial losses from COVID-19. So there's another 14 who are struggling to pay their mortgage and rent or utilities. So we just are seeing a really big need here in this community. And I'm happy to answer any other specific questions. And thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Kelsey. Does anyone of council have questions for Kelsey?
So 15 of the families are in Bellbrook and the other 14 are in the region, but not in the city. Is that what I'm hearing?
15 of the families who may be evicted or had their utilities shut off are in Bellbrook. And there's another 14 also in Bellbrook who are struggling to pay their mortgage, rent, or utilities, but aren't necessarily at risk of being evicted.
Okay, so 29 families in all
Correct.
that we know about.
Correct.
And I think I would support that. We would support the Bellbrook families, not that don't want to also support the township, but I think the township has some monies they can probably work with as well. But I'd like to see our money go to our citizens.
And I have already reached out to the Sugar Creek trustees to share my proposal with them.
Good.
Yeah, I would like to see a joint effort too on both the city and the township.
Kelsey, are you actively working with those families to help them find alternative paths to get out from under this?
We are, yes. We have a resource coordinator that we've recently put in place, and she meets like every week in our food sign-up sheet that we send out. We give people the opportunity to set up a meeting with her over email, over the phone, or in person, and we are actively reaching out to clients all the time. She's gone back through everybody to say, you know, let's sit down, let's figure out how we, like, who else can we connect you with in the community that can also help you with this.
Yeah, because $20,000 will vaporize real quickly. It's just a small bit in the bigger pot that needs to show up somehow.
Right.
But it's a start in the right direction. That doesn't mean it's all that we can do.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think we play it by ear and find out if we have more funds available. Maybe later on, closer to October, we can decide if we want to do something different. I mean, but right now, the only thing we look at, and one of the things we talked about briefly with Melissa was, I don't know if the council sees a need for iPads. I sometimes think that's maybe just one more electronic device that we have to take care of and track, but I mean, we're fast running out of ideas. I've talked to some other cities, and probably the biggest idea that they've done is the touchless facilities in the bathrooms. And when I talked to Melissa about that, she'd already been there, so we already have that on track. So I think that's just a great idea. But I really think the 20,000 to the resource center, and again, Ernie, you're spot on. It'll evaporate fast, but I think it'll help maybe stabilize a handful of families a little bit and maybe give everybody some breathing room. And let's just hope that some of the pieces of the economy, come back sooner than later.
That's why I was asking if for sure we were working with them in addition to just funding to help them find paths.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
And certainly if anybody has any other suggestions in terms of an amount, I thought it best to at least put an amount in there as a consideration point. So I'm open. I mean, I know that I've had several meetings with staff trying to figure out best ways to utilize the money. And like I said, this is, you've got an outline of what we've came up with so far. So.
Well, we know that money's there, so we can revisit this in a month or two when we have a little more idea about the decision from the Office of Management and Budget, or whatever they're called. We can always add to this.
One of the things I've seen in the paper are purification systems for the air in buildings. I don't know, does our fire department, they sleep in those quarters? I don't know if that's something to look at. Things like that. I know the courts are doing it in the county. I think it's a local company that's came up with a way to do that. I don't know if that's something we need to look at.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
We've talked about it. I know that I've probably had 3 meetings with the department heads to go over some of this stuff. Like, here are some ideas, like, what do you guys think? And, I mean, so far what we've moved forward with was really where we've landed. And I forgot one of the things that we've got planned to purchase are like disinfectant foggers. So fire would have one, police would have one, and then service would have one to take care of our public spaces. So they are purchasing those. I think they're like $1,600 a pop for that. But I mean, that's something that could be really useful for the vehicles and, the chairs in the council chambers, things like that, that don't get regular cleaning. So we have been trying to be creative about what we can purchase that we would actually use, because that's the big thing. I mean, we could put touchless faucets in the entire building, but is it really necessary? I mean, it's especially the ones where you just have a handful of people that are using them that aren't public.
Yeah.
On that note, Melissa, is it within the guidelines to possibly fund one of those units for each one of our restaurants in town?
That's interesting. I don't know.
Safer place to go eat, Bellbrook
Yeah. Good idea.
thought.
Well, it's the other thing that Forrest mentioned on the courts, I think his article in today's newspaper about what they're doing in Montgomery County, and they've got some sort of air ventilation thing. We may want to think about that, and probably, like he said, the sleeping quarters of the fire department. Because I know that's a pretty tight area. And I'm sure if one gets it, it'll be literally hours before Bell's does.
Well, if one gets it, that pretty much shuts it down for a few days, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. Any more comments for Kelsey?
Kelsey, is there anything special needs for, not special needs children, but children might be needing for school? I guess the plan is for school to start.
You mean in terms of like school supplies?
Supplies, anything like that. Internet, I guess that's going to be, is that an issue that some families don't have? Or I know if you don't have internet, you're kind of in trouble in this day and time.
Yeah, we did, unrelated to COVID-19, we did do a big school supplies distribution this past Wednesday, and it was, I thought, a really good depiction of social distancing, and everybody wore masks, and we were able to get school supplies to 70 children in the community. So that was really great. In terms of, like, I am working with families who cannot afford their internet bills, but have students who will need to be relying on internet. So that's one of those things that with, if we're able to get this funding from you, we can use that to make sure those families can have their kids able to participate in school programs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Unless anyone has any further comments, I would be supportive of an allocation of $20,000 to the Family Resource Center at this time.
I agree.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Very good. Do we need a resolution or a motion, Melissa? Or?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, it's money that you guys already authorized be expended by ordinance. So, I mean, I was just looking for direction from you guys. So I don't think it needs to be a formal motion unless Pam believes differently.
Okay, well, I think 20,000 is the number for right now. And Kelsey, we look forward to hearing back from you on some of the great work you're able to do with that funding.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. You're going to impact a lot of people this way. So thank you.
We look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Bye. Thanks.
Next up on the agenda is the committee reports. Service.
Thank you, Mayor. Short report. Service Department is waiting on our decision on the paving. I guess that's been made. We did have one service employee completed a 40-hour course on backflow prevention, which is really important for water safety. Prevents water from going from a home or somewhere back into the main system. The July, the water department pumped 40 million gallons, didn't break any records. And the service department is trying to use as much good weather as they can to get their projects done. And so they've been feverishly moving forward on those. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Next up is safety. I know TJ's gone. I don't know if Forrest or Elaine want to make any comments on it, or?
I don't have anything on safety.
I kind of got a question. The night out that was supposed to have been Tuesday, I guess, but it was canceled. And I think I saw something October 6th. Have you heard any more about that, Melissa? Policeman's night out, though.
No, I know that we've canceled all of our events for the rest of the year. So fire department's open house won't happen.
Okay.
The walks, the national night out, there's nothing that I'm aware of that is a city community event that we have planned at this point.
Okay, well, it's like a lot of things. It's kind of disappointing. The fire department, man, that was a big deal. A lot of children enjoy that. But that's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Forrest. Nick, Finance and Audit.
Thank you, Mayor. Second quarter financial update. It looks good. Revenue is above plan a little bit, and I think we just found out that our first half taxes are up a little bit. So from that standpoint, that's good. Hopefully, it will hold steady through the end of the year, as the economic situation is still somewhat unknown, but keep our fingers crossed. As far as expenses go, they're down. So if you couldn't ask for a better situation with revenue above plan a little bit and expenses down. Looking at the capital expenditures, and it looks like most of the stuff has been done in the various areas. There's been a few things that are on hold that I think we'll probably still take a close look at for this year. But I think overall we're right on track. Unless Melissa, you have anything else you wanted to add?
Thank you, Nick. Do we need a motion to accept the second quarter financial statement?
I'll make that motion to accept the second quarter financials.
Thank you. Can we have a second?
I'll second it.
That was Ernie?
Yeah.
Thank you.
A motion was made by Mr. Edwards to accept the second quarter financials for 2020. This was seconded by Mr. Havens. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Havens?
Yes.
Dr. Van Veldhuizen?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mayor Schweller?
Yes. Next up is Community Affairs.
I don't have anything this month.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is open discussion. First, open discussion of anyone on council. We can start with Nick. You're unmuted right now.
Okay. I don't really have anything other than the fact that this just happened. Someone just came to my door asking, one of my neighbors asking about the door-to-door solicitation that seems to be happening in Bellbrook now that I guess there's some restrictions lifted. But the concern that my neighbor had, and I didn't talk to him, my wife did, it's just a mask issue. And the AT&T person was there today at my house, and there's no mask, and there's a bug company out exterminating bugs without a mask. I mean, I don't know what we can do. I don't know how much of it can be enforced. But I just wanted to bring it up to see if anyone had any thoughts on whether or not we need to do it. There's some conversation out on Facebook, especially about the bug guy. I've had contact with our police department. I don't know what we can do. I don't know.
My understanding was they had suspended these solicitation permits until the COVID is over, and I think that'd be the correct course of action.
Yeah, the AT&T person didn't have a license. I asked him.
Yeah.
Don't
Melissa,
answer
you would
the
talk to
door.
the chief. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just don't answer the door.
No.
Melissa, you would talk to Doug to see if he can do something on that, and maybe, I don't think they're issuing permits.
I know that those were going through Jessica, and I know that we had started giving them back out again because there was some discussion that I had with the former Attorney General, Betty Montgomery, on that. So we had reinstituted them, and I did not formally discontinue them again, but I am unaware if and how many people have since applied in the last, month or two since that happened. So like
Okay.
Nick said, I mean, most of the time it's instead of asking for permission, a lot of people ask for forgiveness. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think there just needs to be citations given. That's all. I mean, we don't. And I understand that. And I'm not trying to make life hard on companies trying to do business in Bellbrook. But in lieu of the circumstances that we're in with COVID and the trying to take precautions, someone knocking on your door without a mask on is something no one wants to see. that's the feedback that I'm getting.
Melissa, find out what we can do within our legal parameters and so forth. I fully support that, Nick. And the other thing too is we've had some solicitors in the past, probably in the last 2 or 3 months, and I've talked to a couple more police officers, and some of these guys have been a problem all day long. And we give them like 3 strikes. I think we got to give them about 2 strikes and give them a citation, move on, because one of our officers finally chased out for the 3rd time that day, and that was just kind of ridiculous. So,
I mean, I don't know if there needs to be some sort of resolution from, to enforce this via something changes to our code. I don't know what it is, but we probably need to do something.
okay, thanks.
Maybe
Duly
even like
noted.
a warning in their permit, that says, code of conduct and, 2 strikes you're out kind of policy. I don't know if that's something we can enact. Melissa, you might know the people to talk to see how far we can go with that, but I don't know of any Bellbrook resident that is in favor of having more solicitors knock on their doors.
Good comment. Good comment. Ernie, anything else for open discussion or?
No, not really. Thank you for your time. I was really glad to see you bring Kelsey in, Melissa. I thought that was a great idea. Glad to see that we're getting the things moving along with the city with regard to all the things that we've changed due to COVID, and looking forward to seeing the Northwest Street project going and the Bellevue Drive going. So thank you.
Thank you. Forrest.
Thank you, Mayor. I got a few things. I attended the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission meeting, Zoom meeting. There's some funding available for electric vehicles, charging stations, that pays the total $7,500 for installation. Some of the places you have to put them in like public areas, maybe the library or something, if there's any interest there. I know, it's pretty much paid for. I don't know who pays for the electric though. I didn't see anything mentioned for that, unless there's a meter. I've never used one, so I'm not sure. I know Bella has one. Bella Realty. I think I've seen the station there. It might be something to think about. The other thing that was mentioned, they have a resolution ensuring equity, diversity, inclusion in all Miami Valley Regional Planning staff, committees, and board of directors, actions in addressing racism as a public health emergency. Resolution was put on hold for 60 days by a motion from Mr. Kugler, County Commissioner, to let everybody kind of read that statement and kind of make comments with each other. It's a pretty good piece to read. And I talked to Pam earlier, and maybe she can send that out to council members. And if you have an opinion, whether it's good to vote for or whatever, I just want to make sure that everybody on council is aware of that resolution. And August 14th is a national day for Navajo code talkers. Very interesting. If you Google Navajo code talkers, there's a lot of interesting stories about it. It was brought about in 1982 by President Reagan to make it known all the great services Navajos provided during World War II. It's really interesting. So that's all I have, Mayor. Thanks.
Yeah, the Germans didn't understand Navajo, so that's what they used when they talked secret messaging.
I had an opportunity to live on a reservation for a few years as a child, and if you ever heard Navajo, you can understand why you can't figure that out.
Thanks, Forrest. Elaine.
I don't have anything more. I just am so thrilled to see that we're able to help Family Resource Center. I hope we can do more later in the year. The only other thing I'd like to investigate is the Open Arms Health Clinic. If there are folks there who have been impacted because of loss of insurance, or because they serve people who are uninsured or underinsured. If they have any folks that are impacted, where we could throw a few bucks at them as well. So I
Okay.
know the folks who run it. I'll check with them.
Please do. Dr. Dave.
Just again, echoing the thanks to Melissa for scouting out the Family Resource Center. Definitely looks like a very good use of some of those funds. And other than that, it is nice to see the city living after the surprising spring, see the library open again, people at the shed, and at least folks out and about. It looks different, but it's nice to see folks out and not as perhaps afraid as they were a couple months ago. So that's all I have, sir.
Thank you, Dave. Again, my comments tonight are very brief. I think it's very nice that we can give the Family Resource Center the money that we funded them. I think she's really gonna make good use out of it. And I think that is just a great use of that money. And I'm glad that we're permitted to do so. It looks like we have someone in our audience. Is that correct, Pam, or?
We did, and he went away. So I'm not sure if he wanted to speak.
If you're watching, it was Louis Schatzberg. He was
It
out
was
there for a little
Louis.
bit, and I don't know, looks like he's gone now, so.
Yeah, so I don't know if he wanted to speak or not, so.
He was
Okay.
going to tell us about being watching out for motorcycles.
Correct,
Probably.
yeah. So no one else out there then, right?
Nope.
Okay. So at this point in time, I think I'd like to have a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of reviewing negotiations of 2 collective bargaining units. For the viewing public, there will be no new business coming out of the executive session. So for all intent and purposes, this will be the closure of the meeting for your purposes. And council will now go into executive session if I can have a motion to do so.
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Elaine. Thank you, Nick.
A motion was made by Mrs. Middlestetter to enter into executive session to discuss the 2 collective bargaining agreements. And this was seconded by Mr. Edwards. Mrs. Middlestetter,
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Havens,
Yes.
Dr. Van Veldhuizen,
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood,
Yes.
Mayor Schweller.
Yes, thank you.
All right, if you'll give me just a moment to wrap up a couple of things.